And welcome to On the Record with Tiffany and Kevin on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, home of conservative talk radio, where our personal politics is unapologetically B1 conservative and our party is Republican. And our identity is uncompromisingly rooted in the proud heritage of the American descendants of the formerly enslaved. Was that pretty good? I like it.
Uncompromisingly rooted.
Uncompromisingly rooted. I don't know, I'm getting tongue-tied here. All right, so welcome back.
You're tongue-tied.
I get tongue-tied. All right.
That I emphasize the uncompromisingly because, people come up to us all the time talking about, why aren't you more like Candace? Why aren't you?
Didn't you tell me not to bag on Candace?
I'm not bagging on Candace Owens. I'm saying I'm not Candace.
Well, let's talk about that since we're there. You opened that can of worms. I didn't want to go there, but let's go there. All right. So one of the things that we often get the question on is why aren't we more like X, right, in terms of being a conservative and being in the Republican Party?
Because the goal is not to be some clone of what the other wants to hear.
Yeah, the goal is to be there, be one. That is our politics. The goal is
to be authentic to our community.
And we believe
our community is the Black community.
Yeah, and we believe that the Republican Party has the answers in terms of the belief in conservatism, especially economic conservatism. And the issue is B1s getting access to the system, right? And we see more that's happening more and more.
Having access to economic empowerment.
Yep.
And economic empowerment, in our opinion, comes through the growing of business centers, of economic centers in urban and rural areas.
Yeah, and the big issue that that I often have a gripe with people is, do you want outcomes or do you want to simply gripe, right? Because if you want to gripe, there's no, in the B1 space, Black first space, be it conservative or liberal, there is no end to people who just want to gripe, right? And so I almost got this quote that my father said, but I stopped it.
But for outcomes, then there has to be a policy.
And how do you get policy
action
change?
along the lines of policy.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with voicing your opinion and being upset. Everybody, I feel upset about many things that I see happening. Tyree Nichols is one of those situations where as soon as I saw that, I felt enraged. And I know that we have to build coalitions and go after this with policy.
But let's talk about coalition and policy, right? So one, you have to understand that as B1s, right, whether you're a B1 Republican like we are or you're a B1 Democrat, you've got to know how the system works. Right? How does the system work? So right now, people are trying to get laws passed at a federal level, which, kudos to them, right? But
federal is important.
Federal is important, but the real power is at the local level. That's where it counts.
Change will occur at the local level. The efficacy and policy being put into place will occur at the local level.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very important to be active on both sides. See, this is the part where I believe that a Black agenda is there are certain issues that across the board, there should be a unified Black agenda. Mm-hmm. This is one of them.
Yeah.
This is one of them.
So let's talk about, one of the things that I got in our comments was, you guys are all over the place. You're talking about healthcare. You're talking about politics. Pick a lane and stay in it, right? But that is the lane. That's the lane that Black people are in. We're in economics, politics, and our health. Right? And in order to change those things, in order to change anything in the American system, is you have to build coalitions, right? So I go crazy when I, at least from the media perspective, when they're not building coalitions.
I personally think when anybody says pick a lane and stay in it, it's just like when people say, I just want my actors to act and not tell me what they think their political ideas are. The reason why people say stuff like that is because they don't want to have to think too much. They don't want you challenging what they think.
Well, Tiffany, that chant comes from our side of the aisle.
I don't care. That's
wrong. That's our side of the aisle. Shut up and
it's wrong. And once again, that is why we are here. We're not here to represent ideology that's flawed. We are here to represent Black people. That's the difference between us and the rest.
Yep. And how do we represent Black
right
people? How do we do that?
With policy change.
With policy change and
promoting policy change, promoting real Black folks coming into this party. Mm-hmm. And by that, I'm not discounting whoever else is here. I'm saying people who have a backbone, who believe in Black neighborhoods, who grew up and are still have an affinity for, understand all the love and all of the hard work that exists in our communities, and who are promoting not fleeing our communities, but in actuality pouring into our communities with business, pouring into our communities with our dollars. We do a lot of business within the Black community because there is excellence. Black excellence is a real thing. It's not a phrase. It's not a catchphrase. It's not something we pull out just for Black History Month. Every day is Black History Day. Every month is Black History Month. So for us, being Black is an all day, every day, 24-hour thing that we think about and live our lives as, and live our lives adjacent to whatever you want to say. We press out what needs to be done and what our people are asking to be done. We're following the agenda that our people have asked for.
Okay, so normally right now, during this time, after all this serious talk, somebody would make a joke, but I'm going to pass on the joke because I agree with that, which is the reason that we've been going really hard on the healthcare front, because we look at the things that impact Black people the most.
And you have nothing without your health.
And you have nothing without your health. And one of the things that a really unique position that the American descendants of the formerly enslaved have is that when we change things, when we get policies to change, others benefit from them. You can just look in no further than the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The 13th Amendment eliminated slavery out of the Constitution, right? The 14th Amendment should have at that time given everybody the right to access everything freely in America, but it did not because they wrote it out, right? Mm-hmm. And so those amendments were written specifically for the freedmen at the time. Right, they're specifically written for Black people.
Well,
they were first
when
challenged.
When you say they wrote it out, people wrote policy that then negated
yep.
that basically took the teeth out of those two amendments.
Yep.
And those were the Jim Crow laws that we saw go into effect. Those were the things that on the local level, those two amendments in particular were then de-toothed.
I'm really proud of you, babe. You read all the notes and everything.
Yes, I did. Y'all. Okay, so he's messing with me because in terms of our health, we want to stay here on this on the need to build coalitions and not switch that. All right. Go ahead.
So the emphasis here, and especially with the Tyree Nichols situation in Ohio, and also like with health issues as well, is there is a need to build coalitions. Mm-hmm. You have to build coalitions in order to make change. And so when I always ask people, do you want outcome or do you want to simply have grievance? Because you can't have them both, right? You can't.
You can.
Well, hold on, because a lot of people.
But you can't get caught up in your grievance.
And so what happens in a lot of B1 spaces, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. I see this on the internet all the time. In a lot of B1 spaces, we get caught up in the grievance, and it's mm-hmm. a legitimate grievance, right? But we don't want to cause change, mm-hmm. right? And I'm more for change, right? I'm more for, hey, what benefits us as B1s, as Black first people, and then can we find other people who are in a similar situation that they also benefit from it?
What's going to benefit our community?
So a perfect example of that. So a perfect mm-hmm. example of that in this situation where you have these police, right, who by the way were Black, beating this kid to death. Right? Then what we have to do is look across the aisle and see who else is experiencing this. It's not that and I am not with the all lives matter crowd in the sense that they say all lives matter to simply discount Black lives matter and mm-hmm. they take no action. Any American citizen beaten to death by an authority, there has to be accountability for that. It's similar to doctors.
Well, but we also have to look at the system, because this goes back to a point that we have made for a long time, and that is that police are being trained to be paramilitary groups, and that is exactly what we see here with these guys. Now, definitely, they're off the rails, yes, but that's the training. They're being trained as a paramilitary force across many different cities. That's a systemic issue. That's the paradigm. They're trained as paramilitary forces, and then
they're enforced by unions, right? Everyone.
Yeah, but they're also being taught that the enemy is a profile for the enemy, and the enemy in their idea is a young black male that looks like this kid.
Yeah.
You know, and
but what does that do, right?
When I see that kid, I see a young man who is
I saw a young nerd.
is nerdy just like my little nephews. Yeah. And there's nothing about him that looks intimidating.
But I want to,
or that looked intimidating.
Hold on, I want to build off of that, right? Because what you see happen, and I say this all the time, how they treat black people, how they treat American descendants of the formerly enslaved, and how they treat brown people, right, is how they end up treating everybody in those circumstances.
And the Bible says that how they treat the least of these.
Yeah, but what you see on those situations is you see that happening also to white people as well, right? And so
white people.
Yeah, not just they end up doing it to these people, right? You see a perfect example, Colorado. I don't know what they're doing in Colorado. There's not that many black people, I don't believe, in Colorado, but a lot of those police forces are unhinged in how they're responding to citizens, and they're doing it to black and white, right? There is no difference. In Arkansas, you saw the same thing. They beat the snot out of that guy. They did. We saw it here in Fort Worth several years back, and they just now got the conviction in 2022 where this lady was in her home and they did a police drive-by and essentially shot this woman and murdered her.
So to get back to our point,
coalitions are important.
Coalitions are important. Building coalitions with other groups that are also being impacted in the same way that we see us being impacted. That's an important matter to build policy. Because policy is going to be written for all. Policy is always written with a broader view, and it's not written for a specific group.
And you've been listening to On the Record with Tiffany and Kevin on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, home of conservative radio.